Hi, my name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Today we're going to Proverbs chapter 26, verses 13 through 16. Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There's more hope for a fool than for him. That's verse 12. Wise in their own eyes. It's a phrase that we read several times in the book of Proverbs. And the characteristics of the person often met in Proverbs are sandwiched between verses 12 and 16. And these are the verses we want to consider for a few minutes. These verses are repeated elsewhere in Proverbs. And what they do is give us four characteristics of the sluggard or the lazy person. The first one is in verse 13. The sluggard says, "There's a lion in the road. The lion is in the open square." Now, this particular person is not standing on the road looking at a lion. He's sitting in his easy chair or laying on his bed, just assuming the lion is there. Now, we call that, in reality, just an excuse. It's a perceived problem or threat, real or imagined, but they fill the mind of the sluggard. And consequently, he feels justified for his lack of ambition or unwillingness to look for a job or go to work. The lion in the street is a way of professing to be wise. He knows what everybody else on the street is missing, the lion. But the reality is the people who get out of bed and go to work realize that there are always risks, maybe not a lion, but they can get hurt on their drive to work or catch some sickness or get hurt while they're at work or get bit by a dog if they're walking to work. The list is endless. But the chances of it happening are remote at best, and the risks are necessary if one wishes to pay the mortgage, eat, provide the necessities of life. But for the sluggard, the lion in the street is an excuse that makes perfect sense and would seem to explain their unwillingness to work. But I think the next verse helps us better understand what's really going on in the mind of the sluggard. Verse 14 says, "As the door turns on his hinges, so does the sluggard on his bed." If you want to understand how a door works, look at the hinge. I can't think of a door that doesn't have a hinge. As a matter of fact, having a hinge is what makes it a door. All doors have hinges for the most part. And if a door is not working properly, it almost always has something to do with the hinge. The hinge is what makes a door a door. The door turns on its hinge. Likewise, you want to understand the sluggard? Look at his bed. He can't get out of bed. He loves sleep. He loves tossing and turning in his bed. Getting up early is too hard. The lion in the street is really just a lion in his dreams. He loves his sleep, and the lion is just an excuse to stay in bed and do nothing. If you want to understand the sluggard, look at his bed. Proverbs 6:10-11 puts it this way: "A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man." Doesn't get much clearer than that. Another characteristics of the sluggard is in verse 15. "A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is weary of bringing it to his mouth again." Now that's the epitome of laziness, isn't it? They put their spoon in the soup bowl, but they don't have the motivation or energy to raise the spoon to their mouth. What a sad, sad picture. If they're too lazy to feed themselves, what's going to happen? Others will have to feed them if they're going to live. People have to support them if they're going to survive. And is that not the consequence of laziness? They end up having to be supported by others or by the government or whomever. But the sad thing for the true sluggard is they feel they are entitled to be supported by others. They have been hard done by society. Every little ache or pain is an excuse to stay in bed and neglect their responsibilities to their family, to their employer, if they have one. They feel life is just harder for them. No one else has it as hard as they do. They blame everyone else for their problems. They never see their laziness for what it really is. They refuse to accept the responsibility for their poverty or losing their home or their hunger pains. But the sluggard in Proverbs are healthy, able to work. We need to keep that in mind. When Proverbs talks about lazy people, he's talking about people who are able to work. They're healthy. They just don't want to. They'd rather stay in bed. And Paul's admonition about such people is quite clear in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. Listen to these words. "But with labor and hardship we keep working day and night so that we would not be a burden to any of you. Not because we don't have the right to this, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you, so that you would follow our example. For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order. If anyone is not willing to work, then he's not to eat either. For we hear that some among you are leading an undisciplined life, doing no work at all, but acting like busybodies. Now such persons we commend and exhort in the Lord Jesus Christ to work in quiet fashion and eat their own bread. It's interesting in Proverbs chapter 26, if you were going to read the next few verses, the next subject Paul brings up after he talks about the sluggard is busybodies. And that's what he talks about, Paul talks about as well. Why doesn't such admonition, why doesn't such teaching as we have in Paul's letter to the Colossians or the Thessalonians, why doesn't such admonition convict the sluggard? It's because of the fourth characteristic. The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can give a discreet answer. They have answers for everything, as we've already discussed. It's not their fault. Remember the lion? Don't forget the lion. And on they go. Wise in their own eyes, defending their love with ease in their own bed. But what does verse 12 say? Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There's more hope for a fool than for him that doesn't speak well to the outcome of the lazy person. The great motivator to get out of bed and face the lion is hunger pains. Handouts enable the sluggard to continue on with no consequences. But God says if someone can work and they are too lazy to work, they shouldn't eat. That sounds harsh, but handouts simply confirm in their mind their entitlement to have such things. And they remain in that condition to their own hurt and to the hurt of their family and society in general. There's lots more we could say about this, but we'll leave it at that for now. But may this truth guide us and guard us in the trenches of life. We should seek to live our lives for the glory of God and the good of others. May God bless.